Huh? Cool. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome everyone who's here in person. Welcome everyone that is over Zoom. We really appreciate you coming in and learning about summer fellowship programs. So my name is Bonnie Garcia Glockner. I am the Associate Director for the Office of National Fellowships. What does anyone want to take a guess about what a fellowship is? What's a fellowship?
Partnership with other countries.
Yeah, it could be partnerships with other countries or other institutions. What else? What makes it different from a scholarship? Yeah.
You have like a certain task or mission.
Yeah, that's a really great way to put it. So thinking about fellowships, if you think about scholarships, right, it's usually sort of here's a lump sum of money, use it however you need. Fellowships come into that realm of here's money, but it's for a very specific learning outcome. So that is what our office is working in. We are working in that zone of here's funding and here's something that you should be getting out of that experience along the way. So the ones that we're going to talk today are really, they sort of run the gamut of people that are in their first and second years of college all the way through up to 2 years out after graduating. So our office helps students find out about those awards, identify them, let them know that they even exist in some cases. We do workshops like this. We work with departments across campus so that they can promote different opportunities. And then a large part of our office is working one-on-one with students as they are crafting those applications. So, I mean, that could be everything from just like checking out the portal together to make sure that it makes sense, because many of them do not. And sort of guiding people through that process. And then sometimes, a lot of the times, it is going over your written materials. So pretty much every fellowship application has some component of, tell us your deeply held beliefs and why it is you're pursuing this, particular route and how this fellowship helps you reach those goals. And do that in 300 words or less, right? So that can be a very daunting task because most folks are not used to fellowship writing, and that's where our office comes in to help go through that editing process. Okay. So these are they're nationally competitive, sometimes internationally competitive awards. They can be very competitive, very selective, but that doesn't mean that they're not obtainable. Every year we have people that are winning these different awards. So, why couldn't it be you? Right. So our office, the hope, obviously, why couldn't it be you? Well, there's other things that we hope you get out of the experience of working with us. Winning is nice, but if you don't feel like you have clarity in why it is that you are interested in the things you're interested in, what you hope to do, if you can't communicate that to others, like really get that elevator pitch down, that's us not doing our job. So we want to make sure that by working with us, you feel that you have clarity, you feel that you can communicate that you are more prepared for graduate school, for what comes next. And that you're working to build that campus network. So there are so many resources just on campus. We work really closely with places like the Career Center and the Reading Writing Center, just to name two, right? But if I don't know if your orientation experience was anything like mine, it was sort of like drinking from a fire hose. So trying to keep track of all of those opportunities can be quite daunting. So our office tries to connect you with them as well. And just discovering future fellowship opportunities. So our general idea is even after you graduate, until you enroll elsewhere, you are still ours. So it is very, very common for us to work with alumni. So what we're talking about today, there are a few that are available for folks after they graduate. And it's definitely something just to keep in the back of your mind. Maybe it's not right for your time right now, but maybe it could be right later on. Okay. So today I'm going to be going over just like a few of these summer awards. I will tell you right now, they are not in any sort of discernible order. They are not major specific by any means. All of those applications can be approached in, how does it intersect, the goals of the fellowship intersect with your own personal goals? That is really what you're writing about at every stage. So giant smattering, obviously, if there's one that interests you, maybe jot it down. This is being recorded too, so if you want to watch it later, you'll have a copy of that and go back. So let's talk about this first one. Sorry. So this US-UK Summer, Fulbright Summer Institutes. Has anyone here heard of just like Fulbright, the larger Fulbright program? Okay, cool. So the larger Fulbright program is for folks after they graduate. It's usually teaching English or doing a study research project abroad. The idea behind the summer institutes was, how do we get folks that are still in their first or second years primarily to get overseas experience, be able to really do maybe an intensive study abroad. So they they put together these summer institutes. It changes every year. So this is just the previous last summer's institutes. And you can see that each of them have their own topic. When students are applying for these this fellowship, they're applying to a specific university. So when they're writing their materials, they're putting, their interests at the intersection of these different institutes. So like last year, we had someone that actually went to University of Bristol. And they're really interested in environmental law and the intersection of environmental law and environmental justice. So in their application, they were talking about how they really wanted to go over to see how the University of Bristol was teaching that. I believe his was maybe 4 weeks long in the summer, but it was a chance for him to have this very select cohort opportunity of other people that are interested in the same-ish topics to come together and talk about that as well. So lots of ways that you can approach this. I've had folks that have done like the environment and sustainability one at Lancaster. They were talking about it from the framework of like the emergence of AI in particular in their application. So again, it's really just more about what is it that interests you, and is there a way to find sort of a matching institute or something that could address that. Every one that we talk about today, you'll likely see some amount of, this is what the application entails, this is sort of more of the experience, and then we try to put the deadlines on here when we know them. So in the instance of, for instance, with this one, it doesn't open until November, but it will be closing not until February. So very, very common for us to work with people like right before Thanksgiving, right? Maybe we meet a couple times before the winter break, and then they're working on it maybe in January. But I've also had students who aren't really sure what they want to do yet. And so maybe we talk once before winter break, and then we're working together in January and like February. Last year, I think it was a little bit later, so like February 1st. So there are opportunities to meet with us about any of these awards. I would say give yourself, if you can, 4 weeks out from a deadline. That's I think that's a good like minimum amount if that's available to you. I mean, we've worked with students on shorter, but it's not something that we necessarily recommend. You'll see in a lot of these, you have to have some amount of references. For this one, you have to have those 2 references. At least one of them has to be academic. So they do want to see maybe you started speaking to your professors, faculty members in your department, but you don't have to have like a whole list of people to contact at that point. They realize that, especially for someone that's in their first year, that might be really difficult to get a hold of, someone that's willing to write for you at that point. So one has to be academic, but the other one very commonly, maybe it's like a volunteer coordinator that you're working with. Maybe it's a boss. I think the important thing to always remember for these is whoever you're choosing, can they speak to how you would contribute to whatever the mission is, right? So you want someone that can, maybe you don't have an explicit leadership position, but your boss can speak to the way that you've stepped up to be, like a leader at the workplace, right? That's still helpful if the opportunity is talking about leadership. They can see those transferable skills. So you want someone that can help you really drive home the points of those mission statements, right? Some amount of essays, again, very common for these awards, as you'll see. We've got your personal statement. This one also has a current event statement. So they kind of want to know if you're writing, say, about AI, do you know what sort of the current state of AI is for that particular region, right? For that particular area. I think it's oh, it's not on here. One of them used to be in Cardiff. And Cardiff is, or Wales had some, Wales, I think, had like a giant hub for tech there. And so this became like, that's how one of the applicants spoke about the current events, was like, what is happening with tech right then in Cardiff, right? I hope I'm remembering that right. Well, it's been recorded, so it doesn't matter. So again, it's more just, have you done the research? Do you know where you're going? Sort of the landscape that you're stepping into in that regard. And then you have these two shorter essays, again, example of leadership, and then why you selected the Institute. I mean, this is really going to be the chance for you to show how all of these other three come together, right? And that is at the heart of any of these essays you're doing. You're trying to thread that through line between all of the materials that showed, oh yeah, given what you want to do, what you're already studying, what you hope to study, all of these things make sense for why you're applying to a particular place and award. Okay. Again, you'll have access to all of this, so I'm not going to go through everything because, yeah. Okay, so next one, let's take a hard turn right into STEM. That bar is gonna drive me up a wall. If anyone knows how to hide that permanently, please let me know, because I haven't figured it out. So I'm done with that. Okay. The National Science Foundation, they fund what are called research experience for undergrads, or for short, NSF REUs. These are specified grants that go to different institutions. They are typically in STEM, but you can see that there's a couple of other topics that have been coming up in previous years. And each of these institutions has been granted a certain amount of funds to host a certain amount of undergraduate students. These are all around the United States, and I think now a few in Puerto Rico and the UK as well. I know they had started branching out to outside the continental United States. Summer opportunity, 6 to 10 weeks. It really depends on the place, and it covers quite a bit. I think that one thing that I'll point out is, I didn't think to put it on here, is many of them have some sort of professional development aspect of it. So you're doing research maybe for 6 weeks, and at the end you are doing partaking in a symposium. So you're presenting the research that you did, or you're presenting to maybe their department, right, or their region. Some of them, depending on the work, have sent people that maybe did work with them over the summer to conferences later in the year to present that research. So it is a chance for you to maybe see if a particular field is really where you want to put your energy. And it's also a chance too to start building that professional network. So you're meeting with people that may be future mentors down the line, but also colleagues, right? The other people that are in your cohort. I have had many students who have applied to different REUs, and that's how they found their graduate advisor later. Thinking in particular, we had a student that she applied to, I think, 9 REUs. I do not recommend that. That was a lot going into that summer. But she found one that really worked with what she wanted to do, and she went out there and she was working with a graduate student. That graduate student graduated while she graduated, and then invited her to come to their lab as a graduate student when she graduated. So it's like, you know, they were sort of helping each other through that last little bit of their respective educational lines at the moment. And then she suddenly had a PhD placement because of that REU. So again, building out that network is really crucial here. And everything, it varies because it's dependent on the institution. So they may say, well, we only want to see applications from maybe people that are in their 3rd or 4th year in some cases, especially with more of the like engineering side. They typically like you to have a little more schooling. But then there's some where it'll be very, very early, and they're just, you know, we really want to be that first point of research access for students. So they may talk, you know, more towards freshmen and sophomores. Really just depends on the program, but you can usually make a case either way. It just depends on how you want to talk about your story. There's no set timeline. So usually they open like end of October going into November. And then they can close anywhere between December and March. I would say most of them are closing in January. So really is paying attention to the individual deadlines and requirements for each of these. But you can sort of expect the same type of written components for those applications. What is it you want to do? Why does this particular placement help you get those goals? And like I sort of alluded to, you can apply to as many as you want, right? There is no cap. I mean, for maybe yourself, there should be a cap. I recommend maybe no more than 7, and even that is reaching. You should be looking for the ones that most align with what you want to do, and not just hoping that something sort of works. The flip side of this is Germany has their own program, DAAD, which is the Deutschland Academic Exchange. But they provide research experience for undergraduates as well. In STEM, it is a minimum of 10 weeks. You don't have to know German. You're placed with a German graduate student. You have all of these parts of it covered. And what they really want to see that you have an idea of how specific labs will work towards what you want to do. So you can only choose 3, and then you are writing cover letters to that specific lab as your application. So you can see that they want to have folks that have at least those 2 years by the time they're being placed, 2 years under their belts. And that's really too, just so that you can hop in. If you're only there for a short amount of time and you're jumping straight into a research project and one that's already established, how quickly can you sort of get to be assimilated for that, right? Get caught up to speed. So you do have to have that letter of recommendation from a senior faculty. So again, starting to think now, who could I tap into for some of these letters? It's very, very common. All these applications, with the exception of like I think 2, require some letter of recommendation. So who could you start speaking to now about building those relationships? These open, oh gosh, next week. So I believe right now you can actually go into the DAAD REUs portal and make your account. It just won't show anything to you on the back end yet. You won't be able to see the different opportunities yet. They have kind of a shorter turnaround period than a lot of other awards. So that's going to be due the end of November. And this is one, again, that we've had some good success with over the years. It's just a really cool program, especially if you're already looking at some REUs. See if there's something in Germany that also matches what you want to do. Doesn't hurt to, we always tell students, don't put all of your eggs into one fellowship basket. Like, there's so many opportunities out there, you might as well apply to the ones that make the most sense. And that might be multiple. Hopefully it is multiple. Okay. It doesn't work whenever I do that, see? Okay, shifting gears again. Now we're looking at public policy and international affairs, or PPIA, the Junior Summer Institute. So this is a very rigorous graduate prep program. Graduate level prep program. It's really looking at students that are interested in public policy, public administration, right? Any of those related fields, international affairs. If you're thinking about potentially going into like the foreign service, we've had lots of students that have applied for this award, going that route. You do have to have a letter of recommendation, but they like to see people that are in maybe public service fields. So if you've been doing internships or you have people that can speak to that, those are definitely the folks that you want to tap into for this particular award. I believe it's open now, right? So it's but I think it like just opened. So again, not a whole lot of time. If you're interested in this, you should definitely come and talk to us now about that, because it is due the 1st. And again, very common, like, what are your goals? Share experiences that have shaped your perspectives on this particular field. What's your interest in PPIA, right? So this is another one too that is open. It's US citizens, but if you're an international student, you can still apply. It just has to be through the Princeton campus. Okay. So again, just another really cool opportunity, especially if you're looking more at the public or public affairs side of things. And let us know especially like, probably after this meeting, shoot us an email if you'd like to meet so we can get you on the books now for that application. Humanity in Action. This is also another really cool program that you can apply to. You can apply to early, like during your undergrad, but then you have up until 2 years after you graduate to apply to it. So if you have an interest in human rights, if you have an interest in democracy, social justice, those types of topics, within any realm of which they intersect with your goals, you can apply to Humanity in Action. It is a very rigorous 3-week summer experience in a different city, and you're doing research about, well, you're studying those topics, but within the through the lens of a particular city. So there's one for the Berlin Fellowship, or at least there was last year. There's one for Amsterdam Fellowship, Copenhagen, and I believe Sarajevo. So it's a pretty diverse mix. You can sort of see what other fellows are doing in each of those regions. And I think the really cool part of this, besides a very well-structured alumni network and a really cool 3-week program, is that you have this action project afterwards. So they want to see, okay, if you've done this class, you have these new skills and this new knowledge, how can you put that into something actionable for your community? So yeah, this is shown up as documentaries, different festivals, new organizations that speak to a particular interest within these fields. Is just a very, very cool opportunity that even if you're not ready now, I would strongly encourage you to think about potentially applying in the future. And we've had people from STEM all the way through public affairs and public policy folks that end up applying for Humanity in Action. Again, it's finding that intersection of what you're doing with the program. Okay. The last 2 that I'll mention very, very briefly are Critical Language Scholarship and Boren. These familiar to anyone? Sound familiar? Ooh, okay. I'll mention this briefly only because 2 things. We just did a presentation about language study, I think 2 weeks ago. So there's that. We also had someone last week who came and spoke about the Boren Award in particular. So if you want to hear more of the nitty-gritty about those awards, I really recommend you take a look at our YouTube page, which I believe has both of those on it now. So definitely check it out. Essentially, Critical Language Scholarship, sort of what it says. This is a scholarship for you to study a critical language abroad during the summer. This is a very it's a language intensive abroad. They have already identified the 13 languages that they will work with, and they have institutes that they work with overseas. So if you're, looking at Portuguese, for instance, they work with a particular university in Rio de Janeiro that you would go to for that intensive. You have your group that your cohort. I think there was only like, I want to say like less than 40 per cohort. So that it's a very, you're in the classroom for a good chunk of the day, and then you have time to sort of explore and go on these side quests with your cohort. You can see that there's a few where you do not have to have previous study. There's some where you need to have like 1 or 2. This tends to update every year, so it kind of depends on their feedback from last year. So I would say check the website just to make sure that the levels are still correct. It has not opened yet. Previously, it was due mid-November. Given some of the other federal awards, I would say that this is probably going to be pushed back this year. Many of them were. So you may find that it opens within the next few weeks, but it's like probably due in later November. So CLS, this is this 10-week, up to 10 weeks. You're going overseas. You have this very small cohort, and you are going to be in a classroom for a good chunk of the time, right? They really want you to learn that language. Flip side of this is Boren. So Boren provides, again, an intensive language study in country. However, you come up with a study plan. There is no cohort for a particular region. You are making the case for why you need to be in that country, learning that language and why it is important to national security. Okay, so folks that are interested, especially in the foreign service, this is a big one that we get, because I'll just mention this right now, part of the award for this is that you work for the federal government for a year. And you have quite a bit of time to make up that service, and your clock will stop periodically, like if you decided to go back to graduate school. So whatever, however much time you have left can be sort of parsed out depending on what your plans are when you return. This is typically one that people get funding for an entire year or an entire semester. However, you can get funding that just for the summer. In particular, they think about like STEM folks who just trying to take a full year off or an entire semester off is very difficult. So they were really looking into how can we provide a language study for folks that are maybe a little more constrained on their academic timeline. Again, this is very, very quick. We have a campus deadline November 20th. I'll just mention that because if you want to speak with faculty members about your application, you will want to meet that deadline. Okay. More on our YouTube page. I would say just check that out. Okay, so as you can see, we are kind of a boutique office. So you've got me, you've got our program coordinator, Ting E, who's back here, and we have our associate dean, Dr. Filer. We are happy to work on whatever award you would like to tackle. It's hard for us to say no. So as long as what you're doing is has funding and it has some sort of a learning component attached to it, we will happily work with you on that application. It is very, very common for folks to come to us and go, I found this. Does it meet the definition? Like, can you help me with this? 9 times out of 10, it does. And then we just help you with it. Even if we're not familiar with it, that doesn't really matter. We always love learning. So the best way to get in touch with us, I would say, is through our email. If you email onf@fsu.edu, give us like your next 2 weeks of availability, then we'll respond back and get you on the books so that we can meet and talk about an award. Now, if you're looking at one that's like due really soon, be like, yeah, here's my availability for 2 weeks, but I'm applying to this. So is there any way we could meet, that just helps us understand the priority of what you're applying to. Yeah, and we do have socials. Feel free to follow us on those places or pass that info along to your parents. I don't know. This is where we're seeing students more now, is LinkedIn. Everyone has a LinkedIn. People don't want to follow Instagram, but if you do, please do. We put out cool stuff. Okay, that's really it for my spiel, because again, drink it from a fire hose, most of these workshops. I'd rather you know how to contact us, that there's awards available, and if you want to talk more, you know that we are here to do that. Okay. I saw a hand up in the back. Do you have a question?
YouTube.
I'm sorry?
What's the YouTube channel?
I don't think it's a personalized link right now. It's like, but if you do FSU ONF, it's the first thing that pops up. It should be, because if you just do ONF, you get like a K-pop group. But if you do FSU space ONF, it should be our videos. Yeah, okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
Sorry, could you go back to the DAAD?
Yeah, DAAD. Yeah, I called it DAAD once, and they weren't happy with me. DAAD. So, what's up?
I was gonna take a picture.
Oh yeah. And we'll be sending around a copy of this video too, so you'll have access to that. And more information. I would say the website for this is a little unwieldy in some ways. So you definitely make an account, start exploring it now. You're not going to be able to see like all of the experiences that are available, but you'll at least be able to see how their sort of portal operates a little bit before the 15th. And I think they do have on there like some profiles of previous ones, so you can get an idea. I mean, part of the application, not just speaking about why that lab, but sort of why that region, right? Especially in Germany and Austria, that area, there's so many research institutes that like, yeah, you may be working at like maybe, like University of, the University in Jena, but there's several like Max Planck institutes in the same town, right? So it's like well, yeah, I wanna go there because I wanna do research here at this institution, but I also have access to like all these other places. So anytime that you can provide those like specific things that show you've done your research, that also aids in any of these fellowship applications. Yeah. Any other questions? Anything in the chat? Okay, Oh.
Are international students allowed to apply to DAAD?
yes. I believe so. I think it's open to, they have it as, I think it's open for everyone. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. Whale, thank you for your attention. I'll put it back on this if you need it. But yeah, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to talk to you more. We work with like 60+ awards. So this is like a handful, maybe. If nothing really piques your interest, come talk to us. I'm sure there's something that we can find, or at least something that has some intersection in what you want to do. And we'll go from there. Yeah. Thank you. And feel free, please take a snack on your way out.